Good morning, everyone. Another beautiful day. So again, as usual, we'll start with a short mindful breathing exercise, meditation, to help to bring our mind in moment, in present, um, and to quiet our mind for a few moments. Okay? Keep yourself relaxed, comfortable. And try to let go of any thought from the past or about the futures by keeping your attentions or your mind with the breath. Try to just breathe in and out naturally, normally. While you do that, try to keep your attention, mind, observing the breath and being aware what you observe. Simply learning to observe and being aware and being present with that, whatever is happening. If you find your mind being little distracted, anytime you find your mind distracted, you can always bring back your attention, mind to the breath. Once your mind is more settled down, quiet, then we can try to reflect and contemplate. When our mind is overpowered by such as anger, hatred, ill will feeling, there is no real peace in our mind. Our mind becomes very disturbed, agitated by those thoughts, feelings. And when we are unable to experience peace and happiness, and not only that, when we are overpowered by those emotions, we become too tight and even small things can upset you so easily. We become more negative in those moments. And we are more likely to hurt and harm others. In those moments. In the same way, when our mind is overpowered by strong jealousy, strong desire, ignorance, and so forth, in that moment, there's no peace, joy, happiness in our mind. And no clarity in our mind. Our mind becomes like muddy that have been stirred by those emotions. And when our mind is being muddy by steering by those thoughts, and when our mind doesn't have clarity, we tend to make more mistakes. And we are more likely to again hurt and harm others. Therefore, it's quite clear that our own experience, those defilements or disturbing negative emotions, are very harmful to ourselves and others. Therefore, we need to reduce and eliminate them so that we can find more peace, happiness in ourselves, and also that we are able to help others more instead of hurting and harming others. And in order to reduce and destroy those harmful negative emotions, we need to cultivate and develop helpful, positive emotions such as true love, compassion, the awakening mind of bodhicitta, and the wisdom. When we are able to develop those helpful, positive emotions, we can reduce and destroy those negative emotions. And with those positive emotions, we can have more true sense of inner peace, joy, happiness, satisfactions. And we are able to be more help, benefit to others. And in order to cultivate those positive emotions and positive thoughts, feelings, positive attitude, mind, we need to engage in the meditations, contemplation practices that help us to develop those qualities. And to engage in those meditation practice, we need to learn about those practices, as well as to remind us about those practices all the time. Therefore, I'm going to listen, not only listen, but try to integrate as much as possible in my everyday life, whatever I find helpful, beneficial. And in order to be greatest help, benefit to all sentient beings, I must achieve my highest potential, fully awakened state. In order to achieve that fully awakened state, I must engage in those bodhisattva practices. And in order to engage in those practices, I must know how to practice learn about those practices. Therefore, I'm going to listen. So with that, try to have right intention, motivations for being here. Okay.
Taking refuge and generating bodhicitta, once in English and twice in Tibetan. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye chodan soki chonam la Jonshu bardu dagni kapsuchi dagi chonen gepe sonangi Drola penchir sange drupa sho sange chodan soki chonam la Jonchu bardu dagni kapsuchi dagi chonen gepe sonamgi drola penchir sange drupa sho.
Again, welcome everyone again. And we have been studying this one text or book written by the Third Dalai Lama for almost 3 months now. And we are coming to the end, as I mentioned, 2 more sessions. And in that book, there are many mandatory chapters, and we are on third chapter, where he talk about how to cultivate true, unconditional, true love, compassion, unconditional, unbiased. Sometimes we can have, a lot of time our love is conditional. And even we do have some unconditional love for someone, maybe for your dog. If not for any human beings, maybe for your dogs. Uh, but still is a bias because you have that compassion and love for that dog, but you cannot feel that for your partner or for others. So that kind of love, compassion, even it is unconditional, still is partial and biased because we cannot feel for all other living beings, sentient beings. So therefore, to become a bodhisattva and to be able to develop what we call the awakening mind of bodhicitta, before that, then we should be able to develop this unconditional and unbiased true love and compassion. On the basis of that true love and compassion, then one develop that bodhicitta mind. Or in his last chapter, he talked how to develop that, different meditation techniques, different practice that you can apply to develop such mind, such attitude. And once you have developed that, the bodhicitta mind, then, also he described about engaging in the practice to help and benefit others, through the practice of generosity, through the practice of moral discipline, in a sense that you try to avoid hurting and harming others, and instead try to be helpful, through the practice of patience. When you try to be helpful, beneficial to others, when you try to practice generosity, when you try to practice avoiding harm to others, instead trying to help to others, even when you try to, sometimes others can be nasty to you. And when they are nasty to you, then we lose our mind and we lose our patience. We become angry, upset, resentful, and all these negative feelings. So, so even when you're trying to help, even when they are to you, how we should be patient and not allow our mind to be impatient, thereby angry, upset, hatred, resentful, and so forth. So engage in the practice of patience. And the practice of joyous effort in virtues, when we are trying to engage something, when we try to engage something to help others, benefit others, having a joyfulness in help, benefit, engage in virtues. Not only you engage in beneficial, but when you engage in that, sometimes we try to help others, but help others, it feels like you are compelled to do. It feels like you're responsible to do that, but there's no joyfulness in that. So again, in those practice, talking about this cultivating joyfulness and engage in the virtues. And then he also talked about, meditative concentrations, again, when we try to help, benefit, when we engage in the virtues, how we try to engage fully, without your mind being kind of distracted. When we don't have strong concentrations, then again, whatever we do, we are unable to perform fully because our mind is not fully there, because our mind can be distracted. And then, the practice of wisdom, when you try to help and benefit others, being kind, compassion, and trying to help and benefit others, you need the wisdom, how to help to benefit. If you don't have wisdom, even if you have the best intention to be helpful, sometimes it doesn't end up becoming the most helpful. So even if we have the right intentions, sometimes instead of being helpful, sometimes we make things worse. There's nothing lack in terms of the intentions. There's no more lacking in intention. Your intention, good intention. Your intentions is compassion. You wanted to help. But sometimes we don't know how to help. We don't know what is the best way to help. And by doing that, sometimes it doesn't turn out the best. And so then the need of the wisdom. So the six paramita, or the practice of six paramita perfections. So, and we up to last week we talked about up to the wisdom part. Okay. So I'm going to read, continue where we left, page number 28, at the very end of page number 28, where it says, combining, abiding, special insight. So special insight is the wisdom, and abiding is the meditative concentrations. So is combining those two practices. So he talked about the importance of cultivating that karma abiding or meditative concentration, as well as the wisdom insight. Not only you develop those two qualities, but he talked about the needs of combining those two qualities together to have better success in your practice, meditations, in achieving what you want to achieve on a spiritual levels. So here, moreover, because self-grasping is the root of samsara, the ignorance of the self-grasping, is the root of the samsara, is the root of all the problem, is the root of all the sufferings. Because of the self-grasping, then due to that self-grasping, then we have aversion to some people. We have strong attachment to some. We become indifferent to some others, And due to all these different negative emotions, such as hatred, anger, strong attachments, and being indifferent without any concern for others' beings, well-being, and so forth. And, due to all of that, then it creates the problems between us and others, It brings suffering in oneself, pain in oneself, and then we create pain for others. And so it is the root of all this problem in samsara, that's self-grasping. Single-pointed concentrations, which does not contradict that grasping, does not have the ability to sever or cut or, eliminate the root of the samsara. So here is talking about the needs of the insight, special insight of the wisdom, relies on the ultimate truth or reality. Without that, even you have very strong single-pointed concentrations, you will not be able to cut or destroy that self-grasping ignorance, which is the root of all the problems. You might have a concentration, so strong concentrations that, even someone is banging with big noise, with drum just up in by yourself, where your mind doesn't get distracted by that because your concentration is so strong. But even you have that kind of concentrations, just by that concentration by itself cannot destroy that fundamental ignorance. To destroy that fundamental ignorance, you need to develop that wisdom, the special insight that can contradict that self-grasping ignorance. It's like, if I have by mistake, mistake from distance because of the way it is, raw, and mistake as a snake. And then, oh, there's a snake grasping it to be a snake. And because of that, maybe I might have fear, And how can I get rid of that fear? Is that I need to get rid of that mistake, that belief that is a snake there. As long as I believe there is a snake, the fear will be there. So maybe I go into deep meditations, focus on my breath or any objects. And with that deep meditation, single pointed meditation, I forget about this snake and everything. And then fear is no more there because I forgot there is a snake, because that thought is no more in my mind in that moment when I'm deep meditations. Since I don't have that thought, there is a snake, because there is no thought in that moment. I've dissolved all this thought in my meditation. So there's no more fear. But when I come out of that meditation, then I still think, oh, there is the snake. Again, fear comes. You cannot get rid of that fear until you are able to contradict that mistaken mind, the belief there is a snake. Deep meditations on single point concentration can, get rid of that fear for momentary when you are in that deep meditations. But once you come out of that deep meditation, meditative concentration, then again the fears arises. So that is not the key. The key is then you analyze, go see closer, and then recognize, oh, it's not a snake, it's a rope. Once you recognize, oh, it's not a snake, it's a rope, whether you are in deep meditation or not, there's no more fear of that. Because of that sake, because you have found the wisdom that contradict that mistaken mind. That mistaken mind that believe it was snake has been contradicted. You have had a now wisdom that realize it is just a rope and is not a snake. Once you have that, then whether you are in deep meditation or not, then the fear is, that particular fear is no more there. And that is where he is saying you need to develop the wisdom, understanding the ultimate reality of self and other phenomena that can contradict that found ignorance. And when there is no more, when you contradict that, and then you realize that self-grasping ignorance is mistaken mind, and then all the others, negative feelings, emotions that arises because of that is no more there. So that is why saying you need to develop meditative concentrations, single pointed meditative concentration, but it is saying just by itself is not enough. On the other side, alternately, a wisdom cognizing non-true existence, okay? The wisdom that understands and realize, the ultimate truth, ultimate reality of the self and other phenomena. Even you have that wisdom, but lacking a calm abiding that dwell unwaveringly and single-pointedly on object meditation will never eliminate afflictions, no matter how much it search. So in order to destroy those afflictive emotions, in Buddhism, when we talk about afflictive emotions, then we are talking about anger, strong attachment, jealousy, arrogance, mind, ignoring, so forth. And so in order to destroy that, all of that, permanently, completely, from the very root of that, you need to have direct realizations of what we call emptiness or ultimate truth. Without a direct realization, you cannot destroy them completely. In order to have direct realizations of that emptiness or ultimate truth, first you need to have the special insight, And in order to have special insight, you need to have karma abiding. Without the karma abiding, one cannot develop special insight. And there's a, so I want to make slightly, this is more technical. Okay? I think maybe for those who want to be more practical, maybe it might not be such a great useful, but people who study more and who then technically there is a difference between wisdom realizing emptiness and special insight realizing emptiness. One can have wisdom realizing emptiness even without karma abiding. But one cannot have special insight realizing emptiness without the karma abiding. And without that special insight, then you cannot process. Like in Buddhist path, they talk about five path, that we progress in our path progressively, gradually, to achieve your ultimate goal of fully awakened state. And there are five paths. And first path and second, the first path known as the path of accumulation, second path known as path of preparation, third path known as path of seeing, fourth path of meditations, and then the fifth, the path, the result, the achieving the awakening mind. So in the first path, the path of accumulations, one can develop, bodhicitta mind or wisdom realizing emptiness, even without the karma abiding. Is it possible? It is possible. One can develop bodhicitta mind or wisdom realizing emptiness even without the karma abiding. It is possible. Even this, okay. And again, even His Holiness Dalai Lama shares his experience. Again, when he's sharing his experience, he might be a little humble, but whether he's being too humble or he has mentions over now quite a few years or many years in recent times that he have realizations of bodhicitta and realization of emptiness. Because of realization of emptiness, he said he hardly get any afflictive emotion, delusion hardly arises at all. And he said that is because of his understanding or realization of emptiness. Hardly any delusions, afflicting emotion arises. Even there are times when that frustration might arise, but it doesn't. Once a while, something like frustration arises, but it doesn't last. It's just like momentary. It doesn't hold on your mind. It comes and goes. It doesn't really affect you so much. And that is because of that wisdom reliance. And he also talked about the bodhicitta, that he talked about cultivating bodhicitta by having studied and meditated over 40, 50 years on mainly Shantideva's text. And he gave credit for his realizing emptiness or Nagarjuna and the others' writings that he had studied and contemplated and meditated over 40, 50 years. And because of that, he had those realizations, spiritual experiences. And because of that, hardly, but he does mention he never, again, that is where I say he might be humble, but he said he never developed single-pointed concentration, karma abiding. He said he never had the opportunity. He wanted to develop that. And to develop that, he had to find a certain environment and time, but because of his responsibility, he couldn't find. He was always wanting to do that, to find time in a specific environment to dedicate himself to develop that karma abiding or shamatha for few years, but he never had that opportunity. So he said he was unable to develop the karma abiding, and he make a joke because of that. Then he said he couldn't progress to the second path, because to progress to the second path, you need to have a special insight. In order to have special insight, you need to have that karma abiding. So that is where, and also I've seen in some other countries about, that you don't, even without karma abiding or single point concentration, one can develop bodhicitta mind, Or you can develop, but then you can only reach certain point. You cannot go further than that. So yeah, so that is where, so it's more, a little bit more technical, okay? Special insight, that's where, because we are talking about special insight. And to have the special insight, realizing the emptiness, then you need to have karma abiding. Without the karma abiding, you cannot have that special insight. And without that special insight, you cannot progress to the second path. Without progress to the second path, you cannot progress to the third path, where you have direct realizations of the ultimate truth. And without that direct realizations of emptiness or the ultimate truth or reality, it cannot destroy that self-grasping ignorance completely. You can damage it a little bit, can make it less powerful, but you cannot destroy it completely. It's like you have made your enemy weak, less powerful, but still you haven't get rid of that. There is a difference, okay? And so therefore, in order to destroy and eliminate completely all the afflictive emotion, those disturbing emotion, then you need to have direct realizations of the emptiness. And for that, you need to have karma abiding. Without karma abiding, just by the wisdom itself, it cannot destroy completely. That is so. So that is where it's saying. So therefore here is saying you need both the karma abiding and special insight in order to destroy that completely. In order to attain liberations forever, free from the afflictions, So in order to, even without the wisdom realizing emptiness, or without the, special insight, through different practice meditation, we can reduce anger to a certain level. We can reduce attachment, greediness to a certain level. We can reduce, self-grasping to certain degrees, We can reduce jealousy, all those affliction to a certain degree, but we cannot destroy them completely without that special insight. It doesn't mean you cannot reduce them. Even without the special insight, you can still reduce them to a certain level. But if you want to destroy it completely from the very root of it, then you need both come abiding and special insight. That's where. And so in order to find total freedom or liberation from all these negative emotions, the afflictions, then we need to develop such special insight and such karma abiding meditative concentrations. And so mount the horse of placement meditation, that is a single pointed meditative concentration. Mount on the horse of that use is kind of poetic, and that does not waver when placed on the view. That's the wisdom that relies the emptiness, the ultimate and unmistaken nature of existence. And the emptiness. And what is emptiness? We already talked before in the last couple of weeks. What does that emptiness mean? So what does that emptiness mean? So we already talked. And that emptiness is the ultimate reality of self and all other existing or phenomena. Riding this horse and brandishing the sharp weapon of four great method of Mahayana reasoning, free from the extreme of eternalism and nihilism, and finding the middle way, generate the wisdom that understands the actual mode of existence, the force that destroy all the grasping at the extreme and forever expand the clear mind, able to perceive the ultimate. And so here he talk about, seeing the horse as to ride. As an example, you rely on the karma abiding, So by riding on the horse, then with a weapon, you try to destroy your enemies. In the same way, by riding the horse of karma abiding and by using the weapons of reasoning and logics that you find in Madhyamika or middle way schools, with that kind of reasoning and logic, then you destroy and cut this enemy of self-grasping, ignorance, and all those afflictive emotions. So that is what. And as he says, of course, there are so many different reason and logic you find in those Madhyamikas writings by Nagarjuna's, one of the greatest Indian masters who came around 2nd centuries, and Chandrakirtis and all others. They have written many philosophy or books, writings, and in that they have many different reason and logic to analyze the ultimate reality. Different analysis, different way of investigating, different way of analyzing to understand that. But as he says, mainly there are 4 kind of reasonings. Quite many well known. Is not only 4 reasoning. There are so many more reasoning allowed, but those 4 reasoning are more kind of common that you find. There is one reason that analyze on the nature of the self and the phenomena, and the reasoning of one or many or one or separate. Is the self one with the aggregate, or is it separate from the aggregates? So that kind of, what is the self? Who is the self? What is the self? If it exists infinitely, does it exist one with the aggregate? Does it exist separate from the aggregate? So that is one of the analysis that you find, that is analyzing the nature of the self. And then there is other analyzing on the cause, not only the nature of phenomena, but the cause of the phenomena. Whether the, for example, whether the sprout, arises independent of the cause. Does it come without cause, or if it comes from cause, does it come from its own side, by its from its side? Does it come by depending on others, or does it come depending on both of them? So what is known as the reasoning logic of four possibilities. So it is analyzing the cause. And then there is another analysis that is analyzing on the result. Make go get into the whether the result come into existence by depending on inherently one or inherently many from the cause and so forth. So there's one analysis. Third, and then there is a analysis of dependent arising, the reasoning of dependent arisings. Those four are where he's talking the four, where he talk about the four great method of Madhyamika reasoning. So those are the kind of reasoning, logic, analysis that you use in order to understand the emptiness, in order to understand the ultimate nature of self and other phenomena. And so again, in this meditation, then you use reasoning and logic, analysis. It's just like in the science that you experiment, it's that kind, you analyze in that way. And we talk quite bit, especially the reasoning of dependent arising, how everything is not inherent in existence or independent existence, because everything is dependent arisings. Everything is dependent arisings. Everything is interdependent, interconnected. So, and then giving the quotation from Lama Tsongkhapa. Yeah, Rinpoche said, so he just quote, but kind of commentary he already gave, the one the author we just read is the commentary to this Lama Tsongkhapa's verses. And Lama Tsongkhapa verses says, but the power to cut the root of samsara lies not in single-pointed concentration alone. There's the point, by alone, wisdom divorced from path of calm abiding does not reverse afflictions, though it may try. So it is saying, wisdom itself is not enough. Also, meditative concentration itself is not enough, but you need both. So that point is there, that you need the both. Wisdom searching for the ultimate truth rides the horse of unwavering concentrations, and with the sharp weapon of Madhyamika reasoning, destroy the grasping at extremes. So that is the special insight, wisdom, realizing the emptiness or ultimate truth that is supported by that calm abiding meditative concentration is the one that can destroy this self-grasping ignorance. And by destroying this self-grasping ignorance, and you destroy by contradicting that ignorance, that mistaken mind. By destroying that, then it destroys all the other afflictive emotion that arises on the basis of that ignorance. With a vast wisdom that searches, thus expand the mind, understanding suchness. It is generally when you are trying to meditate on single-pointed concentrations, when you are trying to develop single-pointed concentration, karma abiding, when you have not developed it, when you're trying to, then you don't do analysis. If you do analysis, it becomes distractions. You know? You don't do analysis. You just try to keep your mind to the whatever object you choose to keep your mind concentrated. Okay? So if you do analysis, then your mind gets distracted. So you cannot achieve that concentrations or the karma abiding. Whereas the wisdom that you have to analyze, those two different. One is not analyzing, one is analyzing. Two different methods to develop karma abiding, concentration, and to develop the wisdom. But once you have achieved karma abiding, once you have through how many ever weeks, months, years it takes, if you meditate, and if you are able to develop that kind of karma abiding, meditation concentration that we talked about before, then when you do analysis, it does not destroy that karma abiding. Once you achieve that, while you are able to keep your mind stable, totally concentrated to the objects of your meditations, while you do analysis, it doesn't destroy that concentration. It's like it's some scripture they explain it's like a fish that move without destroying the you know, especially when they are in deep water. You know, they go, but the water is still very still. So to be able to keep your mind still, not only that, your analysis on suchness, emptiness, it helps even your concentration more. And your concentration helps that kind of analysis. So it supports each others. Once you have achieved that, but before we achieve that, then when you are trying to develop karma abiding, then analysis is obstacles. But once you achieve that, then it doesn't become obstacles because you have this now ability to keep it totally concentrated without being distracted, at the same time to be able to analyze this. And not only that, then the analyze helping the force of meditative concentration and the meditative concentration helping the analysis, you know. So here, as stated, merely accomplishing concentration that abide calmly when placed unwavering on its objects is not sufficient. And mind that rests in single-pointed concentration and analyzes with the wisdom that distinguishes the various levels of reality, discern the mode of suchness, gives birth to the concentration resting firmly and unwavering in the meaning of emptiness, the way things are. So, yeah, once you have able to develop karma abiding, so then you can analyze, you can rest in that concentration. At the same time, you will be able to analyze with that wisdom without disturbing. the stillness of that concentration or that karma abiding. Seeing this, appreciate how wonderful is the effort made to accomplish concentration combined with the wisdom. So that again here emphasizing the need to develop both wisdom and the meditative concentration. Not only need to develop both, but combining those both together in your meditation practice. Make a sublime wish towards this end, and then plant its seed forever. So you try to generate the intention, set the intention to develop those qualities, to be able to develop strong meditative concentrations, as well as, to develop that special insight through that meditative concentrations, and to be able to, and thereby destroying all these negative afflictive emotions. And J. Rinpoche says, single-pointed meditation brings a concentration fantastic beyond the descriptions. As we mentioned before, when you have developed such karma abiding, the bliss that it brings, the ability it brings, and then the incredible tool to develop the special insight. Yet, do not stop here. Even you have developed very high-level meditative concentrations, is not enough, he says, so therefore, do not stop here. For that, combined with the distinguishing awareness, able to discern the modes of being. So do not stop here, because by relying on that meditative concentration, by riding on that, now you need to develop the special insight, the awareness, the wisdom, realizing the ultimate reality or truth of self and other phenomena. And that give birth to a concentration that rests firmly and unwavering upon the ultimate understanding that see as wondrous efforts made in karma abiding conjoined with a special insight. And then giving more practical advices here. During the meditation sessions, place your mind evenly in concentration and special insight. And focus single-pointedly upon the emptiness, which is the free of extreme, as the sky is of tangible hindrance. So meditation on emptiness, of course, once you have developed both karma abiding and special insight, still you have long way. Even when you have developed the meditative concentration and karma abiding, you are still in second path. Still there are more path to go to really achieve your full awake state. And therefore you still continue to meditate. And so when you meditate, even after you have developed both karma abiding and special insight, so advice is when you try to meditate there, if anyone's here who are in those states, then again here he's saying the meditation should be balanced evenly. Not always meditating on karma abiding, not always a special insight, but combining those together, more balance. So that is the advice. For those like myself who do not have those realizations, similar also you try to apply similar balancing. In your meditations, when you are meditating, you are trying to develop karma abiding by focusing on breath or any other objects. You try to do some meditations depending on your time. Spend a little bit of time on that, but just do not spend all the time there. You also spend a little time to meditate on emptiness, or not just only emptiness, but also you are meditating on emptiness. While you are meditating emptiness, find some time also this for trying to develop calm abiding. So trying to meditate more evenly, more balance. And so in that sense, in emptiness meditations, there are two kinds of emptiness meditations, space like emptiness meditations. So I think that is where it is talking about that space like where it's giving an example, just like the space is something, there's nothing to hold on. Space is something that is absence of something that is, absent of something that that can be touched, that can be grabbed by your body. Absence of, tangible, or absence of something abstracting. This can abstract, but the space does not abstract. That is because it's absence of such abstractions. That's what the space. And so, just as the space is merely empty of abstractions, that's all is. Space means empty of abstractions, mere absence of that. Similarly, when we meditate on such emptiness, then you meditate on the emptiness that is merely absence of inherent existence. Similar like that space. First, you use reasoning, logics, to come to that conclusions. Why is not inherent existence? Why is not truly existence? With whatever different reasoning, logic that you use, different analysis you use. So you do those analysis, and then you lead to conclusions. Come to conclusion. Whether it's the self, whether it's your body, whether it's your emotions, the mind, whether it's everything's all phenomena, they all are merely absence of inherent existence or independent existence, And so then try to, first you do analysis, and then you come to that, the space where it is merely empty of all that, in the absence of those truly existent. And then you try to rest in that emptiness without analysis anymore. You don't do any more analysis anymore. You just try to rest in that. Try to rest in that awareness, Try to meditate, rest in that before, as, how many ever that you can keep on. So in that way, you combine analytical meditation, non-analytical meditations. First, you start with analytical meditations. Do the reasoning, logics, coming to that understanding that merely empty of inherent existence. And once you come there, then you just meditate on that emptiness without any analysis for, and then that become placing meditations, single-pointed meditations. Here, the object is the emptiness, Just meditate on that emptiness without any more analysis, and hold that emptiness in your object of meditations, and just try to keep that, object of meditation, try to rest in that, try to remain in that meditation. So in that way, then you try to practice those two evenly, more balanced in that way, in our meditations, during the meditation sessions. Between the sessions, when you are in not meditation session, when you are cooking, when you are, working in your garden, cleaning your house, going to the place, feeding your dogs, taking care of whatever someone, during that, all this between the sessions. Watch how things, while not inherent existence, manifest like a magician's creations. So this is what we call meditation in emptiness. During the post meditations, not the post med, during the post sessions, meditating on the emptiness like illusions. And so what you do is whenever we are not not deep meditation sessions, then you can see, everything that you see, everything you hear, everything you smell, everything you taste, everything you touch, everything that comes in your mind's thoughts. If you watch it, there's a sense of how everything, all these objects to your senses, your consciousness, your mind, how everything appear to exist inherently. Everything you see appear to exist inherently. Everything you hear, it appear to exist inherently. Everything you smell, it appear to exist inherently. Everything you taste, it appear to exist inherently. Everything you touch appear inherent. Everything you think of something in your mind, it appear to exist inherently. Even though it appear to exist inherently, but then reminding ourselves that is the appearance, but that is not how things really exist. So not trusting in the appearance, but understanding they are not inherently existing, is just that appearance is just a deceptions. So not following or believing that appearance by understanding they are not inherent existence, because you already understood during the meditation session, you have meditated through different analysis that, and you are aware that they are not inherent existence. Despite you are aware you are not inherent existence, there's that appearance. And so you remind yourself that appearance of deceptions is not true, even though there is that appearance. So therefore, it's like an illusion created by magicians. The illusion that are created by magicians, even it's not true, but there is an appearance of something. Even though it's a trick, but still there is the appearance. But since it's not true, then you don't believe the appearance. If you don't know it is not true, if you don't know it is a trick by the magicians, then you will believe the appearance. But when you understand that is just a trick created by the magicians, even though there is certain appearance, you don't believe that. So you don't get deceived by that appearance. So that is the whole training, what you do during the meditation and how you train during the post sessions in terms of meditating on that illusion like emptiness in that way. At the moment we have to remind and remember, it is mentioned, when you reach certain higher realizations, when you have direct realization of emptiness, then it is mentioned that, of course, again, also, even when you reach, then again, there is a meditation session, post meditation sessions. And during the meditation session, they meditate on emptiness like space, space like emptiness. And then when they come out of that deep meditations, space like emptiness, still they see like what we see, still they hear, they smell, still they taste, still they feel, same like us, that practitioner. But all this appearance by the power of their meditation, deep meditation, everything appear to them naturally like illusions. For those practices, everything appears, but it appears more like illusions instead of the way it appears to us at the moment. To us, it appears illusion naturally. So we have to remind ourselves so that we don't get deceived by the appearance. So that is what here, you know. In this way, take up the practice of the wisdom and method combined. True meditation on emptiness, held by the great compassion bodhicitta. That is the method. You know, the method is so while you try to meditate on the emptiness to develop the wisdom, we get support from the practice of the method. That meditation on karma abiding, meditation on emptiness should always be motivated by compassion and bodhicitta mind, not being separated. You know, not like this. This is motivation. This is a bodhicitta practice, compassion. This is wisdom practice, and unrelated. Instead, the very reason why we meditate on emptiness, the very reason why we want to develop wisdom is because of the bodhicitta and compassion, because we want to help and benefit others. And if you want to help and benefit others, to help them to overcome their own negative emotions, their own defilements, their own anger, attachment, all of that, you need to know how to do yourself. You need to be free of your self-anger through your own tools. And therefore, the reason to develop wisdom is to develop that tool. That with that wisdom, then you have this tool to eliminate your own afflictive emotions. And through that, you have all this direct experience. And through that direct experience, then you can help share how to do others, how to do that. And through that, so therefore, the intent and the motivation should always be there, you know, especially to be a bodhisattva's practice. So we're held by that is the method, by the great compassion bodhicitta, the transcend bodhisattva practice. Understanding this of praise, do not be satisfied by training in only method or wisdom. The method is cultivating true loving kindness, compassion, bodhicitta mind. Wisdom is the wisdom realizing the impermanent nature. Wisdom realizing the the Four Noble Truths, the wisdom realizing emptiness. So all this wisdom, especially the wisdom realizing the emptiness. So here again, you need the both wings of the compassion and the wisdom. If you don't have one of the wings, then you cannot fly, But combines the need of the both. Combine both in a balanced way. Such training is the spiritual legacy of people of good fortune. Apply yourself to it. Single, so from Lama Tsongkhapa, the quotation from there. Meditate single pointedly about space like meditation, emptiness, as I mentioned before. After meditations, so do post meditation, see life and all other phenomena as a magician creation, like an illusion, see by the appearance. Through familiarity with such practices, method, the wisdom, loving kindness, compassion, and wisdom are perfectly united. And you go to the end of both Bodhisattva's way, understanding this by not satisfied by the path, exaggerating either method or wisdom, but stay on the road of the fortunate. So with that, today we will conclude today's class, and maybe we will have one more class and we finish this book. or text. Okay. I can take one or two questions if there is. If there's real questions, I can take one. Otherwise, we can do dedications. Yeah.
Thank you, Geshe. The question is, where can someone learn more about the four great methods of Madhyamaka reasoning?
If you study if you want to go to the original sources, then Nagarjuna's writing, Fundamental Treatise, is one of them. Chandrakiri's writing, the Supplement to Middle Way. Those are the. But again, probably you need some commentary on them. Sometimes those root texts can be a little bit more complicated because they were composed by a great philosopher, and sometimes their writing is more for intellectuals who can understand those way of reason. So sometimes they are not so, and sometimes to make it a little bit more easy, you might need to find certain. So also some of those reasons you can find in Lama Tsongkhapa's The Great Lamrim. The Great Lamrim, the last chapters, and then I haven't read myself, but I know the teacher was great, and I thought everyone who have read this, Geshe Sundu Sopa. He used to be a professor at the university in Wisconsin. He passed away, so he's a great scholar, teachers, and he was professor there for I think 30 years. And he has written commentaries. He has given commentary of many years on the whole Lamrim. And so if you go on the chapter on the special insight, the wisdom chapter on that, maybe you can get more detail on that. Yeah.
As I wrestle with all this, I would like to add from the so it's all magic. It's all an illusion by a magician. But who's the magician? You are the magician. Would you agree with that? Would you agree with that?
You are the magicians. I don't know how to do the magic. Yeah, I think it depends on what you mean by that. I think because when you are saying you are a musician or you yourself musician, I think different people can have a different understanding of what that means. But here, the point here is what is saying the appearance and the reality is different. That is the whole point, using that magician and his creations, and that the whole example, as long as we understand what that is, the main point is the appearance and reality is not same. There is one appearance, but reality is something else. And so therefore, when you understand that reality, you don't get deceived by the appearance. And so then the magician and his creation is giving just an example. So as long as I think that point, because I think otherwise that could be understood again, what does that mean? And we could have different understanding what it might mean. Yeah. Yes, sir. You have?
Geshe, so in essence, we need the special insight of the wisdom realizing emptiness to cut our imprints and the obscurations to knowledge?
Mhm.
Is that,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It is not enough, even with the special insight, you need also bodhicitta to cut the the obscuration of knowledge. Yeah.
Amanda, sorry, I didn't see Amanda. Amanda, do you still have your question?
Do we still have time?
Yeah, if we can keep it a little bit short.
Yeah, I think maybe it's not so short. It's I'll try you though. So you say death is certain, the time of death is uncertain. Only Dharma can save us at the time of death. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about the third statement in some detail. Only Dharma can save you at the time of death. But maybe we need more time.
Yeah. Yeah, what it means is when you die, at the time of death, your body cannot help. Your body is disintegrating. Your body cannot help. No wealth you have, it cannot help. It become no more use anymore. There's no more cure. Your time has come. No matter how much money you have, it cannot stop you from dying. No matter how many friends, family you have, even they truly love you, even they truly want to help you, they become helpless in that moment. In that moment, your loved ones, as much as they want to help you, they become helpless. Even the doctors, they become helpless. No matter how much wealth you have, is no more any kind of uses or can save you. Even your body is decaying and cannot sustain anymore. And so, but if you have Dharma practice, it is the only thing that can keep you sane. It is the only thing that can keep your mind calm, peaceful, dealing with that challenges, dealing with losing your life, dealing with leaving everything behind, your loved ones, everything you love, everything's living. So there can be many different, feelings that one might arises, for different people, different, feeling of fear, worry, anxiety, sadness, and sometimes anger, bitterness, sometimes strong guilt. All those different feelings could arise and can affect you, make it much more painful and struggles. But if someone has a strong practice, good meditation practice, they have Dharma practice, meditation, and they have those tools to deal with all those different emotions, then, through those tools that, then one can overcome all those different disturbing emotions and then could have peaceful death. And then, when you have peaceful death, then it affects also the futures. That is, on other hand, when we die with anger and bitterness and all these things, it also affects the futures. So therefore, that is what it means. What really help at the time of death and in the future is, your practice of Dharma. When you have develop those tools through your practice to manage those. For a strong, good practitioner, probably those emotions would not arise because they have taken care of all day before with their meditation practice. At the time of death, all these feelings of bitterness, anger, too much fear, worries, too much attachment, not being able to let it go, all those might not arise, because they have strong practice and they are able to manage. But even, for some practitioner, even those at that point, because of being in that particular situation or circumstances, even those arises, at least you have the tool to manage and how to deal with that. And through your meditation practice tool, you can try to reduce and calm down your mind and not being overpowered by those emotions. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Dedication.
For Master Shantideva, may all beings everywhere, plagued
by
by
the
sufferings
sufferings
of body and mind, obtain
obtain
an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature commit evil or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with the mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. And then for His Holiness, Gangri Rawe Korwe Jinkam Dir Pendan Dewa Malu Jungwe Ne Chen Raising Wa Tenzin Gyatso Yi Jape Si Te Bardu Tengyur Chi.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. Have a lovely day. Thank you.